My computer screen looks so dark. It doesn't look like I'm on here. Y'all. All right. So Jocelyn, I keep saying Jacqueline because I had an aunt that had that name in her name. Jocelyn Nungaray. Okay. I've worked hard to remember this name this morning. I'm just trying. For those that don't know, a little girl named Jocelyn, who was 12 years old, decided to sneak out of her parents' apartment last Sunday night. It is June the 22nd. So it was last Sunday night. We're going on Sunday as tomorrow. Today's Saturday. Jocelyn was being kind of rebellious. She had just hit her teen years, and her mother is actually very young herself. Just from the news reports, you can see that it's definitely a case of babies having babies. And Jocelyn's mother had a lot on her plate, and she did not want Jocelyn going out after dark, being unaccompanied. You know what I mean? She didn't want her daughter going out after hours when it's dark outside with no one with her, because she knew as a mother how unsafe it was for her daughter to be roaming the streets of Houston. Houston's very dangerous. It's definitely up there with like Detroit and, Miami and New York. It's not a safe area. Houston is very dangerous, especially with all of the illegal immigrants that we have coming off of that southern border. Houston and Texas in general has an overpopulation of illegal immigrants. And so Jocelyn's mother knew this, and she did not want Jocelyn out roaming the streets. But Jocelyn decided Sunday night that she was going to sneak out. So she sneaks out of her parents' house, and she contacts her boyfriend, who is 13 years old. So Jocelyn is 12, and her boyfriend, who has not been identified, is 13. Now, I will say that the boyfriend that she had, his parents are working with local law enforcement and giving over all of the information that they have about the situation and about what their son knows and what their son heard. At one point, Jocelyn was on the phone with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend, who was 13, could hear men in the background with Jocelyn, which he thought was weird. He thought that was very strange. So Jocelyn, at some point after 11:30, 11:45, when she snuck out, she runs into two men. These two men are illegal immigrants from Venezuela. These two men look from the outside like they might not be any harm to anyone. Sorry, I have a picture of them. I'm going to show you guys. They look from the outside that they wouldn't harm a fly, okay? So these are the guys that kidnapped Jocelyn and killed her. Okay, so they're illegal immigrants from Venezuela. At some point right after Jocelyn snuck out of her house, she meets these guys in passing. She's walking down the road. She's walking towards a convenience store. It's a 7-Eleven gas station. And it's midnight at this point. So it's dark outside. Jocelyn, small, young, 12-year-old girl, is walking down the street in the dark by herself, and she runs into these two gentlemen. We don't know what these guys said to her. This is what we don't know. We don't know how they convinced Jocelyn to go with them. We don't know what took place. All we know is that these men convinced Jocelyn to walk into a convenience store with them. And that's the last footage we have of Jocelyn. That's the last time she was ever seen alive, was at this 7-Eleven gas station. It's so sad, y'all. It's just, it's really terrifying. So Jocelyn goes into the gas station with the guys. They walk around the gas station. We don't know if they purchased anything. I'm sure the cops do, but they haven't released that information. Jocelyn then decides to go on a walk with these guys, and there is a bridge. Now, that bridge is very popular in Houston. I think they called it the Bayou, or whatever. It's a huge bridge. The bridge in the area is not called a bayou. It's the land under the bridge, like the wetland. That's what we call it down here in the South. We call it wetlands. So the marsh, it's a marsh. So it's very similar terrain where they would find her body. Apparently, these guys took hours with Jocelyn. They did not the cause of death was strangulation. They strangled her to death. They tied her up. They assaulted her. And she was found at 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning. And I've seen pictures of the bridge. It would not be hard to drive over that bridge and see a body. It's very open land. It's not like a typical marsh where there's stuff all grown up. This land was flat. It's a small creek, and there's a huge bridge that goes over it directly. So when you're driving over the bridge, you can see straight down the river, and that is where they found Jocelyn's body. A bypasser found her body. Someone was driving by and saw this child's body out there. They called 911. They got out of their car and they rushed over to see if this person was alive. I mean, it's absolutely horrific, horrific. I want to talk about the type of person that Jocelyn was a little bit, because from the reports, it sounds like she was going through a lot as a teenager. She was in her rebellious stage where she was sneaking out. And, obviously, if you're 12 and you already have a boyfriend, that's kind of weird to me. I wasn't allowed to date, though. I didn't have a boyfriend until I was like of age. So that's just kind of weird to me that we have 12-year-olds out here dating nowadays. But from what her boyfriend and her mother and family has said, is that she was a very shy person. She kept to herself. She was very calm and collected. She wasn't very like outspoken in your face. She was more reserved and calm. And her mother also said, despite her having this quiet spirit about herself, she still was a fighter, and that she knows that her daughter fought to stay alive. And that her mother said that she was very strong-willed. And so once she got her mind on something, that she was going to do something, she would do it. And seeing the pictures of her, it just breaks my heart. I mean, she was such a beautiful girl, and she reminds me of somebody that I know, and it just is really upsetting. It's really upsetting. It's crazy because I used to run away a lot, and my parents, when I would rebel and run away, my parents, when they would get their hands on me and get me back home, when they were done beating me, they would set me down and show me news articles of children who had been killed. And I don't know if this is good psychologically for to show your child. I don't know. I would say not. Me personally, I would never do this to a child. But they would tell me the gory details and force me to read about other children who had been kidnapped and killed. And I know that they were doing this as a scare tactic, but does my obsession with true crime and local news stories, does it stem from this exposure to graphic, horrifying things as early as 5-6 years old? I'm sure that it has a lot to do with why I'm obsessed with these cases, because it was like some of my first memories are of my parents showing me news articles and telling me what happened to specifically women. So this is what my parents used to tell me would happen to me if I would run away. And Jocelyn wasn't running away. Jocelyn was sneaking out. She had every intention of coming home and still being Jocelyn. But she never got the opportunity. And in my opinion, it's due to this administration. It's due to the fact that that border is open. These people, these two guys, let's talk about them. Because once again, common theme here on this channel, these guys were not only here illegally, but they had already been deported and had several interactions with ICE already. So they were not even supposed to be here. And this is very common. Yesterday, we talked about 2 different stories with other children and that were harmed by illegal immigrants. This is not something that just happens once a month. This is something that is happening on a daily basis that could be prevented. So there's 2 suspects that did this. There's 2 people that murdered Jocelyn. They have been charged with capital murder. Unfortunately, for some weird reason, they don't qualify for the death penalty, which is weird to me. It's like, this is literally the type of case that the death penalty should be used. This is what we have the death penalty for. So one of the guys was named, Johan Jose Martinez. He was 21 years of age. Then we have 26-year-old Franklin Jose Ramos out hunting or something like that for a victim. Say that they had talked about previously in the past. Say these two guys were texting each other and the cops can prove that there was intent there to harm people and that they were out with the intention of doing this, then they would be eligible for the death penalty because premeditation they could prove. And I think that that's why they've only been charged with capital murder and the death penalty is not on the case. Usually when you're charged with capital murder, the death penalty, you're eligible for it, but it doesn't work like this apparently in this state. So my hair's getting on my nerves. I still haven't washed it. Still haven't washed it. You know what it is? It's the camera throwing me off because it's backwards. I do love the cut, though. The cut came out perfect. I mean, it just looks amazing. Anyways, so Martine and Ramos both illegally entered the U.S. without inspection, parole, or admission by the U.S. immigration officer or on an unknown date and unknown location. So they don't know where they came in. They don't know when they came in. All they know is that they're here illegally. Now, ICE has put detainers on them, and all that means is if something happened and they were set free, they would hold them and they would be deported. So they have to put a detainer on you, like to hold you in order to deport you. And they did that. ICE has done that as a precautionary, just in case if something was to happen and these two guys were eligible to get out of jail. That won't be happening. They know that these people, they were the last one to be with Jocelyn. They were the last one to see Jocelyn. They were, it's not rocket science, and I know that being around someone who was later murdered should not be enough evidence. But the issue is that they went under that bridge with her and she didn't come out. They all three went under that bridge and Jocelyn didn't return. So from the surveillance footage, it looks as if these men approached Jocelyn. They then all three walked to a 7-Eleven gas station. They all walked in it. Like I said, we don't know if they bought anything, but directly after that, they all walked under this bridge, and that was the last time she was saw. And then 6 a.m. on Monday morning, they found her lifeless body under that bridge. Now, they know that these guys are the ones that did it because apparently from news stories, they're saying that the guys are being cooperative. Now, I don't know if that means that the guys are admitting that they're the ones that strangled her. We don't know, and we won't know. Now, the medical examiner did determine that she died from strangulation, and they're trying to do a full autopsy to tell if there was SA involved, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it was, and that was the motive. This whole story with Jocelyn really hits home for me due to the fact that I was such a runaway. Like, I ran away all the time. There was so many times that I would just sneak out in the middle of the night and take off on roller skates, and then the cops would come find me and take me home. And my parents were right when they said that there are evil people in this world. And Jocelyn, like I said, had every intention of going home and still being Jocelyn. She was not running away. She was sneaking out in an act of rebellion because that's the age she's at right now. These kids out here nowadays, they have so much pressure on them, so much more than we did when we were coming up. We might not be able to or want to admit that, but it's true. These kids have so much on this that are here illegally that strangled the life out of her. They should be eligible for the death penalty. I don't understand why in Texas they're not. It's Texas. Sorry, somebody was pulling in the driveway. I don't live here. I'm just house setting. Um, yeah, so it's just really sad. And then remembering my parents sent me down and showing me news articles of people, little girls that were murdered, when I was so young. It definitely reminded me of that. So I had a friend in elementary school. Her name was Tiffany Long. She was abducted and murdered, R-worded, and SA'd by teenagers, by kids. Three of them. Three kids pulled her into the woods and killed her. And I was around 10 or 11 when that happened, and I knew her. We used to go to the skating ring together. She was awesome. And these kids did unimaginable things to her. I can't speak, y'all. Y'all know what I mean. I mean, just things that are not even fathomable in my mind. I would never, most people would never think of doing to another human. These kids did to another child. And the last I heard, one of them wanted parole. How about no? How about no? Never, never, never. Um, it's just really sad. And that was in broad daylight. They abducted Tiffany. They did all of this in broad daylight. For the family of a murdered 10-year-old Alamance County girl, there is justice mixed with grief. A jury Tuesday convicted one of the three teenagers charged with the rape and killing of Tiffany Long in 1998. So I was 11, so I was close. It took jurors 45 minutes to make their decision in the courtroom. Joseph Jones was sentenced to life in prison plus 25 years for the crime. Despite the guilty verdict, Long's grandmother says nobody wins. She says they're going to be grieving for the rest of their life. Okay. Prosecutors say Jones, his uncle Harold Jones, 17, and Harold's girlfriend Dorothea Bonham, 18, abducted, raped, and killed Tiffany on October 16th, 98. Her body was discovered behind a vacant house in Burlington pretrial. After the verdict, Kevin Morris says Jones read from a prepared statement. He apologized to Miss Long for not doing anything to prevent what happened, and he expressed sorrow. Bonham, that's the female. So it was one girl and two boys that abducted a little girl and tortured and killed her. When I say they tortured her, y'all, they tortured her. Children. Bonham was sentenced to at least 124 years in prison as part of an agreement with prosecutors in which she pled guilty to second-degree murder, rape, and kidnapping, and first-degree sex offense. Harold Jones faces trial on charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and 3 sex-related counts. A trial date has not been set. When was this written? That was 2006. So, and it happened in 1998. So that's how long it took for these people to get sentenced. They were getting sentenced in 2006. 8 years after she was murdered, these people finally get convicted of a crime. And can I just say that, in my opinion, children who have the capability to do something this evil, they learn that behavior from somewhere. I mean, you have to have some kind of twisted something in you to think about doing something like this to another human. And that behavior is learned somewhere. I don't know. I do know that if it was not for the fact that I was brought up in the church, that I probably would be in prison for the rest of my life, because it's my moral compass that's always gotten me in trouble. Every single fight I've ever been in was because I was either defending someone or I was taking up for someone. Every single fight. I've never been in a fight because I wanted to fight. Ever. It's always because of my moral compass. And it's usually because I'm speaking up and saying, hey, this is not right. That's wrong. Like, you can't do that. Tusk. I don't know, but if I didn't have my moral compass, if I wouldn't have been raised in the church with the way that my parents raised me and the way that they taught me to fight others and to be aggressive and violent, my parents most definitely would beat me if they found out that I lost a fight. So if it came down to fighting, I had to fight and I needed to win, because if I didn't, I was going to go home and get my ass whooped. My parents were brutal, and I know they loved me, but like, I think about how evil and wrong more my life could have went if it would have not been for my grandmother taking me to church and forcing the word of the Lord on me. I might have been a really, really evil, bad person, and it would have been because of the way that my parents raised me. So, to teach a child in diapers to go assault another child is wrong. It's wrong. And my parents most definitely did that. And every time I ever ran away when I was growing up, it was to get out of the abusive situation. By 16, my stepfather's not only physically beating me, but sexually, abusing me. My parents were always verbally, physically abusive. There was never any love or affection or care in my home. It was always about what my parents needed or wanted. Like, there was never any consideration for the children whatsoever. It was never what was best for the child. It was what was best for the parents, And I understand that my parents were doing the best that they could, but at the same time, there's a lack of empathy and understanding and love that they had that they didn't experience that. I ask myself if my mother and my father growing up, and I think that they did, because my grandparents, which was their parents, loved and showed us affection. I mean, that was the only love and affection that I got growing up, was from my grandmother. And if it was not for her, I would probably be a very evil person. It's really sad, though. Jocelyn had every intention of coming home, and she never got the opportunity. And I think it's important to talk about these things, because these things actually happen. My parents used to tell me that people are not to be trusted. There are evil people in this world, and that is absolutely true. And this situation with Jocelyn, her death could have been prevented on so many levels. So many levels. It could have been prevented. And it's just heartbreaking to see yet again another illegal immigrant taking an American life for their own sick perversion. It's completely evil. And I feel bad for her family. I do. But let this be a warning to anyone that is watching this underage. These things actually happen, and there are evil people out here that will most definitely suck the life out of you and leave you in a creek somewhere. And of course, both of these guys had prior records. The 21-year-old had crimes dating back to when he was 15. So once again, here illegally, prior criminal record, prior mental health issues, and no ambition or goals in life. Like, you're literally here just to commit crimes and kill children. And that's what they did. And they had already been deported several times and somehow managed to get back over that damn invisible wall. And they killed Jocelyn, strangled the life out of her, and left her in a creek. I'm going to run. This is really sad. It's actually bringing me down really bad. I didn't realize it was going to put a damper on my day, but it's just really sad. But I'm doing well, and I love you guys, and I hope everybody is doing well. I'm praying for y'all, and pray for me, because God knows I need it. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.